Hello, everyone. We are here today with Mark Fried, who actually kindly did a video entry for our platform Mental Feminism. If you haven't checked it out yet, have a look. Now, I'm also having this fantastic opportunity to be able to talk to Mark and ask him some additional questions today. And in form of introduction, Mark is the CEO of an organization called E2W that supports women in finance. And he's also the co-founder of a community called Men for Inclusion. So Mark, hello. Thank you for being here. And tell us a little bit about those two organizations, please.
Maria, thank you, and thank you for inviting me. Your initiative is brilliant, and I wish you every success, more success. It's important that we get these messages across. So thank you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my story, my feelings, and my thoughts today. Good. Those are the thank yous out the way. You asked me a question. You asked me a question about E2W and then Men for Inclusion. I established with my wife actually E2W 20 years ago, before anyone was talking about diversity, and ages before anybody was talking about inclusion and equality. Essentially our careers in financial services were not in line with our lives and what we wanted and the kind of lifestyle we wanted. My particular career was taking me all over the world. I was never at home, and frankly I wasn't being the type of husband or the type of father I wanted to be, and I knew I needed some more work-life balance. Tina's career had taken also a typical route. She had taken a career break, was keen to get her career back, but didn't want one like mine back. We knew we needed something in the middle, so we created E2W. And for the last 20 years, E2W has devoted all of our time, our energy, and that of our team to supporting and helping women to continue to succeed and to flourish in their financial services careers. You know, over the last 20 years, we've helped hundreds, well, maybe even thousands of women to succeed and flourish. And we've helped banks as well to recruit and retain more of our community, which has been brilliant. It's been an absolutely amazing and lovely journey. And we're so proud of the achievements, our achievements, but those of the achievements also of our team and of the women in our community who we've helped and supported. And it's brilliant to see the changes that have happened over the last 20 years. However, change is slow. Progress isn't as quick as we would like. And you've only got to look at things like the gender pay gap stats to realize that most firms in financial services and indeed outside of financial services are not making the strides that forward that we would like. They're not progressing at pace. And I just thought we need to speed things up. We need to sort this out in my lifetime. Right. So I looked and I thought, and what I realized is that a lot of our effort and a lot of our energy, and that of the industry that we work in and the society that we live in, has been about supporting and helping women, which of course is I've got no complaints about, except sometimes what we're doing is we're training and supporting those women to succeed in a man's world, in a culture that men have set. And maybe progress is slow because we're not embracing inclusivity and letting those women and other people from underrepresented groups actually be themselves in the workplace. And we're not looking at our male attitudes and thinking maybe that's part of the problem. So a couple of years ago, I launched Men for Inclusion along with my co-founders, which is an organization really dedicated to bringing these messages of inclusivity, of the benefits to men of an inclusive environment, how sometimes some of our accidental behaviors, and we all exhibit accidental behaviors because we're all human, men and women, but how our accidental behaviors as men can put up barriers to women succeeding in the workplace.
Very interesting. You beautifully touched upon my next question already, pretty much covered that. I was going to ask you, well, how come, like you said, considering that a lot of men get behind women's initiatives in the workplace and advocate for women in the workplace, how come that you are part of an organization that is focusing on men? So you found that that is the other side of the coin that also needs attention if we are to move forward and establish gender justice, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are, when I look around, there are lots of enlightened men out there who want to support and want to help and see the benefits for everybody, including themselves. This isn't a zero-sum game for men. You know, maybe when we were talking about diversity only years ago, you know, men were left out of the program. You know, we weren't invited to the dance because it wasn't about us. It was about everybody else. But as soon as we start talking about inclusivity, this suddenly becomes about us. And many would argue it's more about us, particularly if you're talking about in the workplace, it's more about straight white man than anybody else, because we do own the cultures. We do have the power in most workplaces. And therefore it's important that it's about us. And then what I see is lots of men are eager to help. Some of them, I get the feeling when we talk about male allyship, are very keen to do those one-off big interventions. I helped her get promoted, or I coached her, or I mentored her, or I championed her. Yes. Which of course is really welcome. But I think, and certainly our research at Men for Inclusion says it's not those big things that make a difference or make the big difference. They're not going to accelerate us forward into a world that we all want to live in. It's really taking the blinkers off or opening your eyes to your male advantage, your male relative advantage. You know, since birth, as a white man, you know, I've had amazing benefits. Doors have opened for me, social networks, social bonds in the workplace and outside, and then just the way I've been brought up as a man, and it's because of that, and then, you know, the accidental sexisms that I display, and most men, all men display, that maybe put barriers up to women in the workplace succeeding. And it's understanding those, understanding how our behaviors affect the lived experience and the prospects of our female colleagues.
Absolutely. So it's not just about that championing piece, focusing on women, but having focus on yourself as a man, gaining that awareness and deconstructing those things you were talking about. And then also, thinking about how that should impact on future behavior. Okay.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
It's really nice to see all of that acknowledged by a white, male, straight CEO. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, that's a pleasure. That's a pleasure. I think it's amazing the work that we do at Men for Inclusion, working with leadership teams and senior men within within the finance sector and wider. You know, it's interesting when we start our work, how many men are saying, well, actually, this doesn't happen here. Yeah, this isn't me. I don't do that. I'm not perfect, but you know, I'm good. And then you share with them one of the research and then the lived experiences of their female colleagues, which we've already collected, and you start putting them in front of them, and they suddenly, you get this almost a light bulb moment where they recognize that it's not these one-off big interventions, it's changing the way they think and behave on an almost daily basis.
Absolutely. Sounds like fantastic work you're doing. Really, really grateful for that. And we're ahead of the questions. We've tackled the next one already. Fantastic.
I'm ahead of you. I'm a man ahead of his time. How about that?
Of course, right? It's nice that we can play with that. My next question will be, would you add anything to, you know, considering that International Women's Day is upon us, what do you see on top of what we just discussed, the role of men to be on that day in advancing gender justice, both inside and outside of work? Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's appropriate. This year's theme is break the bias, and you'll be aware of that. And it just strikes me that breaking the bias, again, is talking about men. Yeah, it's talking about, you know, by and large, it's talking about us breaking our bias. And you know, I think as straight white men, as I've said, maybe we felt left out or threatened by diversity. You know, it did not seem to be about us, as I've said. And maybe, you know, we've been invited to be involved quite often just for the business case, or because it's the right thing to do. And when we were, maybe we felt nervous, strange, maybe like a fish out of water. Maybe we even felt fearful or scared of being involved. And when we did get involved, we were fearful of being the only man in the room. And let's remember, often our female colleagues are the only woman in the room. We'd be maybe scared of how maybe our peers might react. You know, you've gone woke, you've gone soft, you've gone over to the other side. Maybe also we'd be scared. We'd be scared of saying the wrong thing, of putting our foot in it, of not knowing how to help. And I'm sure that's something that most of us have understood and had experience of. But I'm delighted really that, you know, now we're talking about inclusivity and equity, that it does include white men, straight white men. And as I've said, it's all about us. And the only way that we can accelerate this journey that we're on, and nobody's going to move us off of that journey. We are on a journey towards a more inclusive world, and we have been for 100 years or more. Yeah. So let's accelerate this towards the conclusion. You know, we can, in many ways, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's those last few hundred yards of the journey that we've got to go through. That if we get involved for the first time, if men get involved, then that journey is going to finish more quickly, and we can stop talking about it, and we can get on and really enjoy the benefits of an inclusive environment.
So on that note, and you talked about this in your video entry, of course, when talking about that second question, what are the benefits for men of feminism? And I wanted
I hope
to...
that's not a police car coming to collect me in the background.
Oh, yeah, I hope, yeah. Don't.
Sorry, you might want to cut that bit.
No, that's all right. Don't worry. We'll keep that in.
Okay.
But yes, I was wondering if you'd be happy to share some of those benefits that you experienced in your personal life that feminism brought to you.
Yeah. They are numerous, and I think, you know, right from my childhood, you know, my mother wasn't a feminist, and my father wasn't a feminist, but they were inclusionists, if you like, in today's world. They were equals, and you know, I was just as likely to see my father doing the ironing as I was my mother. My mother went to work, my father went to work, and as a child, I was taught how to cook and how to iron, and you know, I was asked to go out and do the shopping, and just as my elder sister was taught how to change the tires on the car, and I'm a child of the 60s, so now you know, I think that stood me in great stead. You know, it means that my partnership today with my wife Tina, you know, we're equals as well. We share everything, we do everything together. Our responsibilities are shared, our challenges are shared, our pressures are shared, and I think, you know, because of that, I have a very fulfilling, wonderful life.
Nice.
And you know, when I look at some of my peers and the different upbringing they had and their different views, friends as well, I consider myself privileged and lucky to have experienced that. But then also, you know, over the last 20 years since we established E2W, it's been, I've had a real privilege. You know, I have benefited domestically as well, in terms of being the type of on-hand father that I've wanted to be, in terms of you know, being at the school gates, at the school plays, having a very open relationship with my children, much different from a lot of you know, that historical Victorian father that actually is still there today, and the servant mother, if you like. Sorry, and that's using quite strong words, I know, but it's given me the opportunity. You know, I can be that person that I want to be.
Right.
You know, I don't want to roll the clock back to the 1950s, 40s, 20s, where men were men and women were women, and you know, you had to comply with social norms and social expectations.
Very constrictive, isn't it? Yeah.
It's constricted. You know, I want people to be able to choose to be stay-at-home dads if they want to. As well as you know, for women in the workplace to have all the same opportunities as men, but also, you know, that workplace, you know, if it's inclusive, you know, I want to work for a boss that got there through merit, not because he went to or she went to the right school or supports the right football team or plays golf. I don't want to be interrupted in meetings when I'm talking about things. I don't want people to make assumptions about my career because I've just become a parent. I don't want people to steal my ideas from me, or ignore me, or think that because I'm a certain gender that I'm right for this type of job and wrong for another job. Nobody wants to live in that environment. But that environment is the environment that exists today in most workplaces. And if, feminism, and I hate labels, I hate male ally as a label, I hate feminism as a label, but if that's what we're talking about, then, we need to change that.
Fair enough, yeah. Thank you very much for that. And I think we're on to the last question, which is, you talked in the other video about how you encounter, and today already as well, how you encounter different, you set different personas in terms of the men you work with in Men for Inclusion. Some get it, others do it to comply and be seen as a good employee, when they get engaged with diversity and inclusion initiatives. So my question for you is, knowing what you said in the other video, and now that having strong female role models in your life has helped you to connect with what feminism stands for, even if you don't like the label, what do you think needs to be done to get through to those men who don't have those strong female role models in their lives to connect with feminism? Because based on what the data that I've gathered on my website, on my platform, that's exactly it. So often when we ask the question, have you always embraced feminism? And if so, if not, what changed your mind? It's usually been the influence of women and their lived experience, whether it's a mother, a partner. So yeah, if that's not in a man's life, what do you think? How do we get to these other men?
If men, straight white men, don't have that influence in their life, then first of all, I think we should feel sorry for them, but also understand that it's because of that influence and that knowledge and that experience that we've had that gives us that advantage in understanding what's happening on the other side. I think too often, far too often, as business leaders, we go to men in our firms and get them and start talking about the business case for diversity, the business imperative for inclusion, and then set targets. Yeah, I think it's then it's not surprising, therefore, that there's a community of men who maybe think, well, what does this mean? What am I doing? What? And get flustered or worse about that. I think it is really important that we talk to men about and get them engaged in recognizing that this is a win-win. Yeah, this is not about changing the playing field in the completely the opposite direction, and suddenly we're all going to be ruled by women and run by women. We're not talking about that. What we're talking about is moving to a better place, or finishing the journey towards a better place, and a better place for everyone, a better place, where I think I covered in my previous video, and touched on it today. Inclusive environments and inclusive workplaces are happier. They're more successful. They give more opportunity. They let people shine. You can bring yourself to work in those environments. One man doesn't want that. Because you're in those environments, and research has shown time and time again, gives better health outcomes for men. Better relationships with their partners, better relationships with their children, less stress, better mental well-being, less mental breakdowns, less suicides.
Exactly.
What man doesn't want that?
Exactly.
And then again, and I think I covered this before, we need to be showing men actually that, we don't want to wind the clock back to a time where you are constrained by social norms. Yeah. When I first went to the school gates to pick my children up, I was the only man there. And I was like a fish out of water. Well, why shouldn't men choose to be stay-at-home fathers if they want to? Why shouldn't they be at the side of the school football pitch, supporting their sons and daughters, or the netball pitch field? Why shouldn't we be allowed to be those kind of active fathers? And by the way, along the way, we can choose to be gay today. Yes. We can choose to be transgender. We can choose to grow moustaches and support what football club we like, and we don't have to drink warm beer anymore. Yeah,
it's all about choice and freedom and self-expression.
Absolutely. But the final point, and I guess, and I think I brought this up in the previous video as well, is around actually, guys, we've got a responsibility now, because we've achieved all of this. We've got all of these benefits that we've already received, but don't you think it's about time that we started holding hands with other people on this journey and walked? No, let's not walk. Let's run to the finishing line together.
Yeah, that's a nice image. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you put it just now beautifully, this win-win.
Yeah.
And people who watch this, I think, will get it. It's just a question, what are the channels that will allow this message to reach these men? So you do this, I think, as part of your Men for Inclusion work. What do you think? What do businesses need to have all the men run through a program, or what needs to practically happen, you think, to reach all the men?
Is this my point where I can run the sales pitch?
As well, maybe.
Yeah. I think so. Firms out there, practically the only thing that you've done for your male colleagues over recent years is do unconscious bias training and invite them to get involved in women's networks and other employee resource groups. Let's step this up. We've all seen reports coming out of leading firms looking at their culture, looking at their working practices, and the move towards ESG. Large firms are going to get measured on this. Their investors are going to start to measure them on this. There is also the business imperative to do something. But the work we've done with leadership teams across the industry show a gulf between the believed lived experience of female colleagues that the board and that managers and execs have, and what's actually the lived experiences of female colleagues. Yeah, it's no good just employing more women, particularly at graduate level, and them not progressing and not flourishing in the industry. And it's about time that we started taking some responsibility to our actions in looking at the culture, our working practices, our own personal behaviors, and thinking, actually, am I the blocker? Yeah. No fault, no blame, but what can I do personally to change? And that's not just about reaching out and opening a door for a woman. It's about her complete lived experience in the workplace, and making sure that we are getting the best out of all of our colleagues.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like that focus on wider, holistic culture, probably culture change initiatives, really putting that under the microscope. For one, I think that women in business programs, initiatives can have their place, but I always wonder, where are those men in business programs? We need both, so that everyone in the workplace has a space and opportunity to reflect on those things and their own behavior and part in it. So
I think it's interesting, Maria. I was talking to a lady, one of our members, the other day, and she's reached the top of a large financial technology company. She's on the board now, and every year for the last 10 years, she's taken it upon herself to coach and mentor young female graduates that are coming into the business. And every year she's come away from that program feeling a level of success. But this year, she had a light bulb moment when the young woman who she was coaching and mentoring and supporting turned around to her a few weeks into the program and said, Tina, I'm going to use a name, Tina, you have, ever since I've been here, and all of your coaching and all of your mentoring is about trying to change me. It's about trying to make sure that I succeed in the existing culture in this workplace. When I applied for this job, I looked at the website, I spoke to the recruiters, I spoke to the hiring managers, I spoke to people within the organization, and everybody assured me that I'd be able to bring myself to work. Everybody assured me that this was an inclusive environment. But the first thing that's happening is when I come into this environment is you're asking me to change, to behave differently, to fit in with the existing culture. And this made the woman I was talking to, Tina, really sit back and think, actually, for the last 20 years of her career, all she has done is change to fit in, to comply, to, if I can use the expression, to wear the trousers, to speak up, to bring out her masculine side of things. Why do we need to do that? If we're talking about an inclusive environment, we should be changing the culture in the organization, and all the time that culture is by and large owned by the straight white men in the organization, perhaps it's the focus we should have on the straight white men.
And if we move away from businesses, what are your thoughts? What should men be doing in their everyday lives to help advance this? And to get to other men.
To get to other men. I think, and I try and do this all the time. To get to other men, I think be aware of your advantage, be aware of your masculinity, and call other men out nicely, and also but invite the women in your life to call you out as well. When we're seeing laddish behavior or banter, where we're seeing our loved ones being treated as like stereotypes and in stereotypical ways. Let's stand up and just call things out. And once you start doing that, once you start becoming aware, people look at me. For the last 20 years, I've spent a lot of my working life looking at it through the lens of a woman, because of the stuff I've done with E2W. as soon as you start doing that, you just see things every day that are wrong. Yeah. Now, you know, as a man, you know, I pick some of them up. As a woman, you must be picking them up all the time, every day. The other thing I would say, and it goes back to where this all started for me, and we've talked about it, is being a role model. Yeah, let's be a role model to our sons and our daughters. You know, a lot of men say, you know, they're doing this because of because of their daughters, which is great, and I've got no problem with that. But let's do it for our sons as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I know, you know, my son, one of my sons, you know, his first day at university, he phoned me up and said, "Dad, you know, I'm in this flat with a load of strangers, a load of men who don't know how to cook, who can't open a can of beans, who don't know how to boil an egg, whose mothers are now traipsing halfway across the country to do their washing." You know, is that the next generation of men that we want? Let's look at our behaviours, and let's look at how we're bringing our children up as well.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Yes to all of that. And when you say role model, it's obviously, and you mentioned that before as well, I think not about being perfect. It is just about having that awareness to monitor your behaviors and their impact in order to keep that in check as much as possible, and to be as inclusive as possible. Because if you have a son, for example, if they don't see it from you, then that's going to be difficult. And similarly, in group of male friends, when they get together, if no one is role modeling that or making it a conversation and calling things out, it's never going to move forward.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree. Totally agree.
Mark, oh my God, I could talk hours to you about this, but we'll have to leave it there. And I love this whole conversation. Thank you so much. I think it's been very insightful for anyone who will listen to this. So thanks again. And
Maria, thank you. And thank you for the work that you're doing. And your blog, your website, your feminist initiative of getting men involved. I think you know, every little helps. The little bit I do, the little bit you do, the more people we can join hands with, as I said earlier, and let's run to that finishing line together. It's a better world for us and a better world for our children.
Agreed. Let's do that. And on that note, everyone, if you haven't already, check out the website, Men Talk Feminism, and I'll also post links to these two fantastic organizations that Mark co-founded, so E2W and Men for Inclusion. And otherwise, everyone, have a good rest of the day. See you soon. Bye.
Thanks, Maria. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.